Welcome back to the No Matter What Club. I am so excited to have the Rubio sisters in the house today. Let's start with Vivian, who is a dedicated advocate and certified addiction counselor with a profound commitment to supporting individuals on their journey to recovery. Inspired by her own experience with addiction and subsequent recovery, Vivian pursued her academic endeavors with determination, graduating with honors from Pierce College in 2018. With 6 years of clinical experience specializing in LGBTQIA+ treatment, Vivian has become widely recognized for her expertise in both inpatient and outpatient settings. Victoria is a passionate advocate for trans rights and visibility. She came out as a transgender woman at the age of 16 on the Montel Williams Show and soon began speaking at prestigious colleges on how to affirm trans students in the classroom at just age 16. After a 26-year battle with addiction, she found sobriety at 42 and has now celebrated 5 years of recovery. Yes. She attended and graduated college, becoming an addiction treatment counselor at Friendly House, a nonprofit for women run and founded by women. Both the Rubio sisters do work at Friendly House, and we are honored to be partners with Friendly House over at No Matter What Recovery. And I'm so excited to share these two beautiful women of trans experience with y'all on the podcast today. Here we are back again for another episode of the No Matter What Club. Joining us today, obviously, we have my sidekick Mel.
Doing a high five. We know.
One more. Got
That's
it.
solid.
Sidekick Mel, and we have the Rubio sisters, who I'm so excited about. We have Vivian and Victoria here today. So being that you two are both women of trans experience, you both work in the mental health and substance abuse field, you're both sober. I wanted to talk a little bit about your journeys of like what led you here, you know, a little bit about your, like how you got sober, or I guess what it was like, what happened and what it's like now, and what you're doing in the industry now, because y'all are changing lives.
Yeah, you are.
Mm-hmm. Wow, when I hear that, it just like it really makes me think of how far we've come, you know, from those two sex workers in the streets of Hollywood, you know,
Santa Monica and
Highland, honey, right over there by the donut
shop.
Okay.
Right over there by the donut. That area's changed so much, by the way.
much.
But like, yeah, I mean, living on McCracken, you know, doing in-call, walking the streets when the phones were dead. You know, we were.
So what year was that?
It had to be like around 1998.
Did y'all do the car washes too?
You know, I stayed away from car wash. I was more towards Formosa. You know.
I was doing Santa Monica Boulevard and trucking it down to Sunset as well, you know. Mm-hmm. I was an entrepreneur.
Was there like, when that was happening, was it just like, did y'all feel safe, or was it like,
God, no. We were walking down streets with big purses and hammers inside of our purses, you know, wrenches and hammers and everything, you know. It was, you know, I take myself back to that time. It was such an I don't want to say interesting or fascinating, but it was a whole different time than now. You know, we're in 2025, and it's just like, you know, talk about trans visibility then versus now. You know, I feel like we've taken so many steps backwards to very close to that time.
Yeah, I came out in 1993, 94 on a little show called Montel Williams. I don't know if you guys have heard of it. In front of billions of people. And when I came out, it was one of the most bloodiest years for transgender women, as far as the rate of death. And so, I mean, I'm 16 years old. I don't know any of that. I just want my mom to know what my identity means and who I am. So we went on the show, and then we came back from the show, and all the backlash happened. The picketing of parents at the school, and me being in the newspaper. I came out before my sister did. And so it was really difficult because I didn't understand that. I was very naive. I was, you know, like 15, 16. I just wanted to be me. I wanted to be able to present as female. I wanted to be able to just, you know, kind of educate people. And it was just so disheartening and sad. And this current climate brings me back to that. You know, trans people have become a political pawn in this current political climate. And it's just really, it's really upsetting to navigate that as a trans woman, especially a trans woman in recovery. And what we can do is be visible, is stay visible, come on platforms like this and lend our voices, because no one can erase our identity, let alone our stories, and we all have stories to tell, don't we?
Yeah. And I'm telling you, my sister came out and she was like, I'm here and I don't care what anybody else thinks. It was such a big thing in our family. My mother was like, oh, you're all going to hell, or you're going to hell. And, she's typical second generation, born in the United States, Mexican woman, Catholic. We were Catholic. Our family was very, dramatically Catholic, and it was just like, it was all of that. And like, you're tearing the family apart, you're doing this, pointing fingers, shame, shame, shame. And my sister was just like my hero. She's like, I'm just trying to be me. I don't know what your problem is. And when she went to school and everything, dressed and I mean, just herself,
Were there any resources available to you during that time?
After the show, we got a bit of free therapy, which is how I was able to get on hormones. So there was some kind of gender affirming care there. My mother had to sign a paper, of course,
But where did you get your hormones?
Pardon?
Where did you get your hormones?
Before I got them legally.
You remember? Remember where you got your hormones? Because we were still under the veterans care.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that. Oh, my God. So my father was in the service, so we were still under the VA. So I got my hormones at the VA hospital. Over to you. Yeah.
Wow.
I totally forgot about
and
that.
The looks.
And the looks.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, and the looks. You brought me back. You brought me back over
I didn't
there.
want you to forget that.
Yeah. It was really, I was scared, picking up female hormones, still presenting as male. And I was wondering, like, we're walking in, I was like, did anyone see the show? Like, did anybody, who saw me? And my mother was really protective over me as well. So she was kind of just like, we were all looking over our shoulder, and I was just, give me my months. So I can go on with my life, So when I started taking hormones at that age, it was a whole different experience for me. And there was one support group in our little city that we lived in. We lived in Upland at the time. And it was a group of trans women. And they were all like in their 30s and 40s. And I was like 16. So I didn't really feel like I related to anybody, although I wanted to be a part of so bad. So I related to them with drugs.
Got it.
How many years after coming out as trans did you?
I was 19. So she was 16, I was 19. So she was having her experiences, and I was like, I'm just, I remember when Montel asked me if I was trans as well, and I'm like, oh, no, I'm bisexual.
Did you say you're bisexual?
Yeah.
I think we all kind of like went through that.
I was bisexual
Me
for
too.
many years.
I'm bisexual, and then
With your blue contact.
Yeah, with my blue contact
And arched eyebrows?
God, yes, honey. And then,
For the God.
oh God, I'm being dragged. No, I'm kidding. So it was a different time for me. Like, she had left school. They told her, you're just too much of a controversy. You have to homeschool.
You had to leave school?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
But you know what she did? What she did, I'll let you tell the story. What did you tell them?
Well, I mean, I just want to go back to the experience of being told that I had to leave school because I was too much. The student body was in an uproar. I was being picked on too much. It was for my safety, they said, although they were trying to get me to use the nurse's bathroom instead of the female bathroom, but I refused. I would go to the female bathroom all the time because nobody's going to tell me where to pee.
That's right.
If I'm wearing a dress, I'm going to the women's bathroom. Thank you. And so, like, I wasn't following their rules, basically. So they were like, well, we need you to homeschool because of this. And so at the time, the principal was very adamant about putting my male name on my diploma. And I said, well, then I'm not going anywhere. So what you're going to do, basically, is you're going to tell me to leave school, and then you're going to put this name that I'm not going to ever go by again on my diploma. So I talked to my mother, and we had a meeting with the principal. And I basically told them, I'm like, I will sue you. I don't care how old I am. I'll find a lawyer. I will dial someone and sue you if you don't put my female name on my diploma. and I want to walk with my class.
Were you able to?
Yes.
Yes.
Nice. That's right.
And her yearbook photo, I'm just gagged over it all the time. I'm like, oh God, there I am presenting boy, honey. And then there's my sister just like, herself. I'm very jelly, but my experience was different. Like she left school, and when she left school, I felt so alone and isolated. And, my mom had come around. So, we were going to like LGBTQ support groups. I was going to one particular one with a friend of mine that I met in a neighboring high school in Long Beach. And that's where I found community and eventually drugs. Like that's what we did back then was Tina, meth, and I was my senior year hooked on methamphetamine. And I was going to school, blue contact lenses, because that was my thing. I'm like, no one's going to be able to see them dilated pupils with blue contact lenses.
I'm dead.
Yes, honey, I was savvy. And so that's what I was doing, And I was working at McDonald's, and I'm living my best gay life, and at the time too, like mind you, like when I graduated, I was 18 my senior year. So I'm going to, 18 and over bars in West Hollywood. I'm meeting all these older men.
Don't forget the Alibi in Pomona.
Yes, girl. I'm meeting all
the Alibi in Pomona.
So I'm living, what you would call, I'm as a gay boy, I have boyfriends, like all of it. And I have a whole bunch of friends, but then, it just didn't feel like me. It just really didn't feel like who I was. And then, when my sister was out of the house, she met this man that she was living with in Long Beach. And I was just like, after graduation, I went into psychosis, during the meth use, and I was able to stop cold turkey. I can't forget the look on my mom's face, because we come from a long line of addicts and alcoholics in our family. It's in our family. And my grandfather died, of his alcoholism. So when I saw that look of disappointment and like, you're not going to graduate high school, I stopped, and I did, like by the skin of my teeth, graduated high school. And then I went out to Long Beach. I talk a lot with my hands, sorry. I went out to Long Beach to go meet up with my sister, and I, confided in her, but she was in her, she was in her own story at that time, I should say, with her boyfriend and everything. It was just a whole thing. She ended up moving to West Hollywood. I followed her, and then that's where I transitioned. And I remember, because we were getting, street hormones. So I wasn't going to the doctors and getting medical care. I wasn't doing any of that. I didn't even know like I can get Medi-Cal or anything. I didn't even know about the LGBTQ Center on Trader. Like I didn't know anything about that. And so, we just got hormones from this little Aunt Angela who would get them in Mexico, honey. She would bring her little kid with her and give us our hormones.
Strong hormones, honey.
So
were y'all getting? Did y'all do the cement?
Stuff,
did y'all do any of the
no,
cement silicone?
We
or
did.
anything?
We did a little silicone here and there, but she gave me my first.
All of my surgeries.
So she gave me my first hormone shot. My sister did. She gave me my first hormone shot, and then it was on from there. But I was also drinking. I was an alcoholic, active. Drugs here and there, and it's just like, so I remember like when I was going through early transition, just a struggle in my head. It was I thought I was going crazy. There was a lot of ups and downs, and I really regret that. Like I didn't get to enjoy my transition.
I was wondering when you were gonna talk about that.
I didn't get to enjoy it, like, because I was so, I remember I cut all my hair off. I'm like, I'm not gonna do this. I'm just not gonna do it. I'm gonna detransition. Sorry, I'm going to detransition, but I didn't, I felt very in between, and I didn't know what it was called, and people would call me freak. People would ask me, are you a boy or a girl? Like it was just, and I didn't feel like either. I didn't feel like either. And now there's a word for that, and that's non-binary, and it's beautiful, and so going through that experience, it just was like, and then finally, I balanced, I leveled out, and I'm like, okay, I am she, I am her. Let's keep going, And
she was living when she was going through that journey. She talked about me living with somebody. I met a man. I was 17, he was 28, and he was the first man who affirmed me as a woman. You know, like he was the first man who was attracted to me as a woman. Because when she was going out and living her best gay life, I was like, I felt I wasn't female enough for the cis women, and I wasn't gay enough for the gay men. And I felt like, where did the T belong in LGBTQ? For me, I was just like, I felt like I was just stuck in the middle, you know? And I was like, okay, I know I'm attracted to men. I've always been attracted to men. I never wanted to sleep with a man as a man, ever. And I actually waited until I transitioned to do that. Oh, wow. And so I was just like, she's going to all these places and stuff. And then I met this guy, and, you know, I find out later in my years and the terminology, like he happened to be a chaser, basically. He would only want to date trans women. And so we moved in together. It was a terrible time. He was just awful. And he had this woman who was very attracted to him and had a crush on him, and they lived together. They grew up together in Fresno. First of all, Fresno. Anyway, so we're in this place where he didn't have a job because he had a disability, and she was working at like a Little Caesars or something, and I didn't have a job.
Pizza.
Yeah, and I didn't have a job either. So this was the first time that I was actually introduced to prostitution, because he put me out on the street.
Oh.
And he was like, well, you can make money doing this. And during that time, he was like, but don't dress as a girl. Oh, and
So he wanted you to foreclose on your transness
Yeah.
in order to go out and support him.
Yeah, in order to take me to Vaseline Alley, honey, throw me out there.
Oh, no.
And that's what he did. And during that time, I remember feeling like really confused. And I'm, you know, on all these hormones, and nothing was working down there, honey. Let's just be honest. And I was just like, what am I doing? And it was really scary at that time for me. And prostitution was something really new. And I just remember being on the streets, and all I wanted to do was be a part of, but I wanted to contribute somehow too, because I was just made to feel like, you're not contributing. You're just taking up space. So what are you doing?
Were you using and drinking at that time?
Oh yeah. I started using meth when I was 16. I didn't stop till I was 23. And I was introduced to meth at that support group I was talking about. And these older women would take me to clubs like Alibi, like I was talking to you, Oz and Buena Park. You know, I would get into clubs at 16 years old, and I would do meth all night long and come back and sneak in and then pretend to sleep for like an hour. And then my mother would wake me up at 7 a.m. for school, and I would go to school coming down off meth. And then I would do it over and over again, you know, and that just became my habit. And meth brought me really far down a rabbit hole, to the point where I became an intravenous user at one point. And I was living behind a dumpster behind a Denny's because my sister didn't want to see me kill myself, you know, and I never blamed her for that. I never blamed you for that.
Yeah, that was a terrible time. We lived together, and she just couldn't stop. And, you know, here I am, you know, doing meth, you know, snorting meth, drinking, mostly on the weekends, the meth, drinking a lot. And I just like, I can't see you do this. Like, you have to go. You have to leave. I don't want to watch you die. And that was really hard. That was the hardest time, like, for the both of us, because I mean, we would see each other at Peanuts, you know, 7969 back in the day.
Oh my God.
That was the club, girl. That was the club.
Been
for
there.
all the girls, Mondays and Fridays. We can pull clients out of that club. You know, that's why we love that club. Because all the chasers will go to that club. Honey, it was a meat market. Trust me.
Yeah.
We would go there to work. Play and work.
Yeah.
But
Mondays and
we would
Fridays,
we would see each other and like walk by like we didn't know who the person was. We didn't talk to each other. It was, and she was running with these trans women that were just all about the meth, all about the meth and the hooking, all about the meth and the hooking. And like, listen, I was all about the hooking, but I could put down the meth, you know, because I was a classy drug user back in the day.
I want to say I got down to 90 pounds.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
thought it was just so cute. Ribs everywhere sticking out. And advertising in the paper and just
The Sun.
It was
You had an ad in the Sun.
We did. We had
Several.
both of us. We had
Sun,
AliExpress, the Sun.
That's where I got arrested. AliExpress like 3 times. I was a terrible hooker.
Yeah, she was a
How
terrible
much-
ad hooker, and
Yeah.
she would get arrested
All
all
the
the time.
It was awful.
Okay.
They would ask me how much, and I would tell them. Just come on, they're like, "Oh, you're not supposed to say that."
She
I'm
might
like,
as well have
"How are
said,
they
"Vice,
supposed to
come
know?"
get me."
So I've heard y'all both speak publicly several times about your stories, and one of the things that really amazes me when y'all talk is just your professional knowledge about statistics and about the trans population and how it relates to drug use and mental health. Would you say it's really common for survival sex workers to be utilizing crystal meth?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
And I love that you're talking about this too, because I don't think there's enough conversation around trans women in chemsex, trans folks in chemsex.
Yeah.
You know, the literature out there is aimed towards gay men in chemsex.
Yes.
And there really should be some literature out there that explains how this is connected to trans women in chemsex as well. You know, how this is connected with trans women involved in survival sex work. Because you're going to, I used to tell my clients to come and, when you're coming, can you bring a bump of X, Y, or Z, or how about a bottle of wine? Because the cop ain't going to bring the drugs, honey.
You're
So
right.
and so we're going to do it, and then we're going to do the deed, and you're going to pay me and leave. And, we used to do it to stay up all hours of the night
To make coin.
and just turn tricks.
Right. And I think that's what you're saying is so important, because chemsex is really geared towards gay men in the LGBTQ community, but it affects all orientations and all genders,
Yes.
right? And if you're, doing survival sex work, you need to shut off a certain part of yourself in order to do the survival set of
absolutely.
skills.
Yeah,
And meth provides that, kind of eradicates the emotional consciousness behind it. And that is something that I would like to highlight in the future as well.
Yeah.
Any kind of sex work involved with trans people, porn, dancing, there's always going to be some form of drug, because as addicts and alcoholics in recovery, a lot of us know, we want to numb our pain, and I like that my sister talks about sex work and says survival sex work, because that's what it was.
Right.
We weren't doing it because it was fun. I never did. I was arrested several times, and I had to spend 30 days in a men's jail looking like this, by the way. They would not separate me.
On hormones with
On hormones, with breasts.
in male prison.
Yeah, I looked like this, but just a little younger.
Yeah.
Very little. But just kidding. I was younger. But the point is, there was no sympathy for trans women. And, we talk about it in the 90s, like we are going back to that now in 2025. That's what it feels like for me. Like it feels like we're going back to that. And I think it's just so important to talk about this subject in particular, chemsex and trans women. After I decided I wasn't a very good prostitute, I got involved in porn, and I was called by a producer. He wanted to see me in person. I thought it was a cop. I was like, well, what can happen? I'm going to get arrested again. And I started doing porn as part of survival as well, to stay off of the streets. I remember the first shoot I did, I was twacked out of my mind. I was really high, and the guy was ugly as fuck. Sorry.
They're good.
And I was like, I have to do this just to sleep with him, and then I can leave, and then I can leave. And I felt safe because I didn't have to be on the street anymore.
Yeah.
So then I thought I would turn that into a career, and I ended up doing 260 movies.
Wow.
And trust me, even then I was not at all proud of what I was doing, and it's still a name that haunts me to this day.
Yeah, and that's it. Our lives are so parallel, because of course I did porn too, and we were one of the first group of trans women that actually were signed by a very
Studio.
popular porn company.
I mean, we could say the studio; they're out of business.
At the Devil's Films. So we were signed by them, and we were on AVN magazine. It was a whole thing, because it had never been done before.
Yeah, there was never
contracts
contract
were never
girls,
done
yeah.
before, and that's the thing when we're using. And my sister talking about drugs and porn, like, I remember like they would give us Viagra. Because we're pickled, honey. We're on some
Not pickled.
We are pickled, and so like they would give us Viagra, and
So
so
I
like
guess
mix that with cocaine.
For the listeners, really quick, do hormones affect your
Oh yeah,
performance?
absolutely.
Okay. Which is why the Viagra was needed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, because otherwise it just what are we doing?
Right.
And so like, and that's the thing, like mixing that with cocaine, methamphetamine, and other drugs. Like I'm listening to all of this, like, right? And like, it's all coming out of my mouth and my sister's mouth. And like, we're going to be 49 in August. We are lucky to be here.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the thing, like all of the things that we've experienced out there in our 20s and our 30s, because trust me, it didn't stop just in our 20s. Like we've lived so many lives, and like, and all of it until we stopped using and drinking involved drugs and selling ourselves.
So two of the parallels that we really love are two of the first, right? Like you were the first person in your high school to be able to walk with your preferred name on your diploma, and y'all being one of the first contract girls for, the adult film industry as trans women. And what trailblazers. I mean, to be honest, and it's funny because what you were doing then, I look at you both as trailblazers in our industry today. I mean, the impact that you two have on not just trans women, but working in a facility or a program that caters to women, Friendly House, which is just like a pillar in the recovery community here. Like, you two amaze me. Yeah. Honestly, you really do. One of you were speaking and you were talking about statistics, and I just started crying. Like, and I don't know if I've ever shared this with you, but a trans woman saved my life. When my parents kicked me out when I was 16, it was a trans woman that took me in, and it was very, posed and like I was, in a house and like, I was on the streets too, and the trans women, like I was on the street like begging for change when my parents kicked me out for being gay and a trans woman took me in. And so I share about this all the time, but like my life's mission is advocating for the trans community. And even no matter what, I mean, that's why we have the specialty in the trans population that we do, is because the trans population, trans women, trans men, non-binary, gender non-conforming individuals, like we see you and we hear you, and there is a place for all of you at our table.
Absolutely.
And we need that so much. It just breaks my heart what's happening.
Right.
It's really hard to watch.
It's really hard to exist. It's really hard to exist. It's frightening. It's frightening. And that's I do my best not to doom scroll. I do my best not to have the ear out too much, but then what am I doing?
It's hard not to.
It's hard not to, it's hard not to, but also then what am I doing?
We're on the front lines.
Yeah,
exactly. Like we're lending the hand, we're setting the example, we're engaging people's resilience in every single way. And I don't know if this is your experience, but with the climate the way it is, it's really brought up a lot of these internalized messages that I had long since tucked away and worked on. And now they're just kind of front and center around orientation, gender, intersectionality, all of those messages. I'm hearing them for the first time in like 20 years. And I'm like, wait a minute, that voice was at, a 2 in my volume in my head, and now we're back up to a 6.
Can I ask what intersectionality is?
It's an overlap of like socioeconomic, race, religion, and then maybe substance use, mental health issues. Yeah. It's the overlap of
for being trans and Hispanic.
Being trans and Hispanic is definitely intersectionality. Yeah.
And right now it's very hard with this climate right now. I mean, literally, Mexican people are on the streets of Los Angeles protesting, and trans women in particular are having that political finger pointed right at them.
I mean, bodies are being politicized, and then they're being fetishized, right?
Like, absolutely. Absolutely. Nobody cares about a bathroom. Like, no. When that first started coming up, I was like, what the hell are you, what is going on here? Like, I didn't understand that. And I still don't understand that. Like,
It's hate mongering. That's what it is. It's hate mongering, and it makes me so angry.
Yeah.
And because it's hate mongering. It's there, even in some of these bills, like the SAFE Act in Arkansas, save children from experimentation or something like that. That act. It's the speech and language that are in those anti-trans bills and laws, and save adolescents from experimentation. Which is ridiculous, and like I said, hate mongering. That's what it is. It's fear mongering, hate mongering. It's trans people are predators. Trans people want to use the bathroom with your kids. Like all of that. Honey, you want me in the bathroom with your husband? Okay, babe.
For me, it's gender-saving care is life-saving care. Gender-affirming care is life-saving care.
If my mother did not sign on the dotted line in 1994, I would not be here right now. And that's a fact, and I want to say thank you for using the word trailblazer, because I don't see myself as that. I see myself as just a person who wanted to live. After I came out on the show, I spoke at Claremont McKenna College and Scripps College. I was asked by a really prominent professor there who wanted me to talk about what my experience was like as a trans kid in the classroom. And I spoke in front of all these would-be professors, and I didn't know then what the big deal was. Why am I up here talking about how to affirm a trans person in the classroom? Because people were curious, because this was not happening everywhere. They didn't know how to treat us. So I was excited, and that's when I got the advocacy bug. But it was unfortunately dimmed when I started drugs. And when I got sober again, I wanted my voice came back and louder than it was before. And I started sharing on platforms like this, and I started doing talks. I went to school, I graduated, things that I never thought I could do. And just recently I finally started writing a memoir, because our voices need to be heard. And what we can do is stay visible.
Right.
I can't say it enough.
And I think visibility is so important. And when we were looking at the schedule of creating the shows, I've been talking to y'all about this for months, because I'm like, I want y'all on this show, and we were trying to figure out all the logistics and everything. And I'm just so honored that you're here. And Mel and I were really looking forward to this episode, because the trans community are human. Y'all are human. And I feel, even just like in watching it, a dehumanizing experience for you. And I can't imagine how y'all are feeling watching.
I love that you said that, dehumanizing, because it is dehumanizing. Like now, if I want to go get a passport, no matter what trans affirming surgeries I have, gender marker changed, it's got to say male on it. I mean, I have not identified or had that marker on my documents in years. I mean, I had bottom surgery in 2000, April 13th, 2000. And now at the age of 48, if I want to go get a passport, it's got to read male.
But they'll take your tax money.
No, they
They'll
will.
take my they'll take my tax money. They'll take all the coin.
Yeah, it's really disheartening. I mean, and I'm glad that you talked about that, because we're talking about, trans women and men who've been transitioned for years and years. It's been 32 years for me. And that marker wants to make a comeback. Like, and what's next? Them making us use that other name. I haven't used that name either in 32 years. And it's just like, they can't erase our identity. And I just want to just talk about the marginalization a little bit that you brought up, because I think it's very important, because this is happening throughout this climate with trans women. It's happening with Black men and women as well, wanting to, not celebrate or taking these holidays away, like Martin Luther King Day and
Pride
and Black History Month right now. We're in Black History Month and Juneteenth as well. And it's like, I want to just say that when we fight together, when we are loud together, because we are all in this fight together, then we can be heard.
Amen. And this is not Make America Great Again. This is Make America White Again.
Yep.
That's what this is. Let's call it what it is.
I have a question, and we may not be in this place yet. I don't know that I am, but like in sobriety, we learn the value of acceptance, right? And we talk about like, my sponsor always says, "Are you in acceptance? Are you like where And I don't know that I'm there yet.
Yeah.
How do you feel as being sober women? And the principles that we practice in our programs, because I know y'all are both active in the A programs. How does that affect your sobriety, your serenity? Like, where are y'all at with that?
Oh, honey, when this election was first called, I was in such shock. I think for the first time in 5 years of my recovery, I had a very big trigger to drink. I just wanted to go and drink. I wanted to go and drink and blow it all up, because that's what we're good at, when things like this happen. And I was able to lean on my community. I was able to lean on Friendly House at the time. We, as an organization, hosted a space where we can all share about how we're feeling about the current climate and what we can do moving forward. And I'm so glad that our executive director, Christina Simos, gave us that.
Hi, Christina.
That she gave us that space.
Yeah.
I mean, I literally wasn't even there. I was at the gym, and I was like, I need to get on this call because I have some stuff to say. I need to get it out. And I was at the gym because that is one of my mental health coping mechanisms, is I love to work out.
Yes.
Because I just fucking beat a machine up instead of grabbing a beer or a shot or a line, and doing something healthy. And so to navigate this sober, it can be really hard and triggering and just think about it. I'm 5 years sober. I think about the other trans men and women who are just new to sobriety, you know. And when I got sober, it was November of 2019. And then the pandemic hit, So
We were talking about that on another episode.
Yeah. So I was at a crossroads. I was like, I could do this or I can do that. And if I did this again, nobody would care. Everybody was dying around me. I literally worked at the grocery stores next to a woman I was with for 7 years as her friend, and she had little kids, and she died in March of 2020 when there was no mask, there was no nothing. And I worked in that dangerous climate as well, So when my sister says we've lived many lives, she's not lying, honey. So for me to navigate sobriety in 2020, and we all remember, what was happening in the White House back then as well, like 16 had just ended. Finally, there was somebody in the White House that was going to be affirming us. And all of the things were just going on. But now I can just imagine the younger ones right now, the early recovery trans men and women and gay men and women and black men and women that are having to navigate this climate. So for me, it's so important for me to go where the love is. And the love is in the rooms. That's where the love is. That's where the non-judgment is. That's where your voice can be heard. Go into the rooms and lean on your program.
And let's not forget our Latina and Latino brothers and sisters as well, going through this. The fear of, and what a contrast, right? Like when Biden was elected, and that speech, and he included trans folks and LGBTQ folks in that speech, the amount of hope that filled up within me. And when this current president spoke at his inauguration, it was fear. It was fear. It was, oh my God, what's going to happen to us? What's going to happen to us?
So one of the points of this podcast is we really wanted to expand our reach to our LGBTQ brothers and sisters across the world, but especially in smaller cities in the United States, because we're very privileged to have access to the meetings and to the community and to the resources that we have here in Los Angeles. Do y'all have any advice that you would love to say to any gay or trans individuals that are in very small towns across the country, just like messages of hope or inspiration?
I could say, just continue to be yourself, continue to be visible, continue to be out there, continue to advocate and take up space for who you are, be proud of your identity. I can say all of that, but it's easy coming from my mouth. I mean, I have passing privilege. I can go out there and, pass as cis woman. I can do that.
I would say to everybody out there who feels they don't have a voice, I'll be your voice. I will fight for you. I will fight for you until I breathe my last breath. You are not alone. You have a huge community everywhere. I see you. I feel you. I used to be you. So I will fight. I will continue to fight. I will lend my voice anywhere I can. I will speak as loud as I have to, and if they think they can speak over me, I'll speak louder, and I'll do it for all of those who feel they don't have a voice, because I know how it feels to have that voice taken from you and stripped from you. Drugs did that to me. Alcohol did that to me. Marijuana did that to me. Being afraid of my own identity did that to me. I went stealth for 20 years because I dealt with my internalized transphobia, and I didn't want anybody to know that I was trans because I was afraid. So I will not let you be silent. I will fight for you. I will be as loud as I need to be, and I see you. I see all of you.
Anything?
I mean, I'm just so moved by hearing your voices. And I know how important it is out there for anyone who may come across this to hear that message and to know that there are other people that are out there on the front lines of this. And I also am a person that's I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to get louder. I'm not going to get quieter. I'm going to speak in all the places and spaces where I'm invited to go, because for me, that's very important too. And I know that there are so many people who aren't able to do that because of just safety, right? Yeah. But as long as they can hear that they're not alone, that's something. That is something to keep living for.
I'll tell you what, I really needed this today.
We did too.
So thank you.
One of the statistics that we heard was that the LGBT teen suicide hotline is the phones can't stop ringing. I think there was some statistic that said that they've gotten more calls in the last month than they've gotten in 5 years or something like that.
Yeah.
And there are resources, and when we tag this podcast, we'll add a bunch of resources so that if anybody needs help, that they can. I mean, obviously, you can call Friendly House, you can call No Matter What Recovery. We'll add a bunch of more LGBT resources and everything, but we are here, right? We're not going anywhere. Yeah. One of the other questions that we ask everybody on the podcast for a little bit of fun: what's your no matter what?
Oh, that's a good question.
Honey, I'm going to be loud no matter what.
Right, there we go.
Yes,
Yeah.
honey. I'm going to exist no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. I love that. I am, again, one of the other things, actually, before we close, when you were giving a presentation and you were speaking about this website that was talking about all of the anti-trans legislation.
Yeah, it's called antitransbuilt.com. You can go there and you can click state by state. Antitransbuilttracker.com. You can go there and click state by state, and you can see what bills are affecting you. It's a map of the whole country, and you literally just click on the state that you're in, and you can see what bills are coming up. You can see what bills are being passed, what bills are being rejected. The number keeps going up every year of these bills being introduced across the country. So it's good to be able to inform yourself, especially, and keep yourself safe where you're living. And I just wanted to say something just in regards of a resource for anybody who may be looking for any type of recovery meeting. There's a website called aahomegroup.org, and that's actually the website I got sober on in the pandemic. And it's literally a meeting 24/7. You can click a meeting at 2 a.m, and you can be surrounded by love. So that's aahomegroup.org.
Yeah, every hour on the hour. And also, that website, is it .com or .org?
.org.
No, the other one. The bill tracker.
Antitransbuilttracker.com.
.com. Okay.
So one of the questions that I have is, what can someone like me do to help advocate for the trans community right now with everything that's going on?
I mean, darling, you're doing it. You're doing it. You're doing it. You're giving trans people spaces to heal, to be seen, to be loved. You're doing it.
Thank you.
This is honestly, I never thought, well, first of all, it's like you, I never thought I'd make it to 18, right? I had every card stacked against me that could possibly be stacked against me. And I think, Mel, you were in a similar situation.
Very similar situation. Yeah.
When I got sober, I just figured I'd stop using, right? Like I thought that was like what it was going to be. Today, my life has the value that I get out of life. Well, first of all, let me say this. All of my friends are trans. Like I'll go into the story when I was trans for 2 weeks at one point. But like this community for me, to be honest, I don't even look at you as you're women. You're my sisters. You know what I mean? But yes, giving voices and giving platforms and all of that is cool. But like being on the front lines, right? Like it's just like I feel I'm at a loss for words right now, just because like I've had to stop. When you said doom scrolling, right? I had to stop kind of looking at everything and one of the things that I deal with is my whole family is Republican, right? And they support me in Tony's marriage. My dad walked me down the aisle, and they're doing, their best, and they're totally fine with me and my relationship. But it's one of the challenges that I've had is trying to navigate my belief system and still trying to like be able to be and show up for my family, right? I was able to let go of all the stuff that happened when I was using and kind of all the stuff where I came out. I left my parents' house when I was 16. Like all that was washed away when I did my steps, and my family and I are good. But like being in this current space, I didn't realize that like it was going to be hard for me to navigate this with my family. And for a while, we just weren't talking about politics. We still don't talk about politics. Like I can't get into it with them. But there is a part of me that's like watching our community kind of just be destroyed in the media. And it's infuriating me.
Yeah, I see it so much. I see a lot of these gay men and women and trans people for this current political climate, and I don't understand. I don't know, I see a lot of pick-me trans people, wanting to just, I don't know what they're trying to do.
They're pick-me cis-pandering trans folks.
Yeah, and I just...
What does that mean?
It just means, cis-pandering. You're pandering to the cis folks. You want them to pick you. So you want them to...
Like validate me.
Yeah, honey, because
like,
if we all get put on a boat, honey, they want to be left behind.
Yeah, exactly.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, exactly. They want to drink the Kool-Aid. It's like what is that? What is it called when you get kidnapped and then you start to like your
Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, it's very Stockholm syndrome. Very much so. So my advice is not to get caught up in the political dogma, and don't get just don't get caught up in it. And just I want to say one thing before I'm done talking. There is no LGB without the T.
Correct.
That's right. All the way back.
That for me, I actually saw that meme on social media the other day, and I cried. Like you are us and we are you.
That's right. Yeah.
And we're all doing this together. And like, to be honest, the gays wouldn't be here without trans women on the front lines.
No.
Listen, I have a lot of gay history inside of me that I would love to talk about, but maybe on another podcast.
Yeah.
Okay.
Trans women started gay liberation, and I'm not talking about Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. This goes all the way back to 1959 at Cooper's Donuts, 1966 at Compton's Cafe. We were the first ones to stand up to police brutality when they were harassing the LGBTQ community. That's just a little short piece of history. Yeah, just a little snippet.
I mean, we could go back thousands of years.
Yeah.
Into like a Kuan Yin.
Yeah.
Non-binary deity that would come to you in whatever gender you needed to offer compassion. And I hold that in my heart because I identify as an MB. So it's like right, all right, but these historical figures are not in history books.
Yeah.
We don't learn about Cooper's Donuts, right? Like we're not, but that was like where the start of the movement actually was. And this is sort of the oral tradition that I take as a responsibility as a queer person in the world to let people know, to speak about those things, because we're not going to find it in a textbook. We're going to find it by offering that to other people. And I think education engages resilience and pride in who we are. And without that, I think we get a little lost without role models. I mean, we're missing an entire generation of role models for various reasons, including HIV, right?
Yeah.
So that has fallen to the wayside. So voices like ours are so important.
When I was a teenager, I thought Pride was for circuit parties.
Honey.
You know what I mean? I thought for me, Pride was a parade, a circuit party, a weekend to go get high, and
Well, that's how it's presented, right? And it's like floats and rainbows and stuff like that. But it was actually like a social action movement that started right here at the Black Cat Tavern. Stands for personal rights and defense and education. And we need to reclaim Pride, because that personal rights and defense and education, I think, is what we need the most in this world right now, especially with the rhetoric, especially with the judgment, especially with the bias. Like, we need to engage the origins of what Pride is.
Absolutely, and there's nothing better to do that than to be able to just to educate yourself. It wasn't until I started my bachelor's at Antioch that I knew about our trans history.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until I visited the one archive library in Los Angeles. It's and it's a mecca of gay history. And it was just amazing. And that's also another thing we get to do in sobriety. We get to educate ourselves.
Yeah, we do. And then in turn, you got it, you give it away. That's what we know.
and ask questions, because to be honest, I didn't learn that Pride wasn't a circuit party until an elder gay took me aside and was like, hey, this is what this is.
These are our roots.
But
I love that you said that too, because I was thinking about the question that you asked is like, what can we do to support, right? And, I actually responded to a question around allyship and support today. And I'm thinking, listen deeply. I think we're so quick to want to medicate or help, or, you have to do this, this, and this, and give direction and tell people what to do when they come to us with oppressive pain and marginalization. I think that we're so quick to want to fix it that we actually miss the message, and we actually miss the opportunity to really deeply understand another person's experience. And when I think of how can I help, it's I want to listen more than I speak right now.
Yeah, there's room for all of us to heal.
I could go on with y'all for hours.
I know, right? We could talk more, turn
I
off the cameras,
loved this
talk.
conversation. We would love, Mel and I would
Yes.
love to have y'all back, and we can explore another topic.
We can do some queer history.
Yes.
Okay.
Pop culture.
She's not the only Antiochian in the room.
All right, bring it,
I have a question.
Antioch.
Before, are y'all both first generation in your family to go to college?
We are first generation in our family to go to college.
That's amazing.
Yeah, higher learning. She's almost done with her bachelor's and she's going to go to her master's. I'm I just started my bachelor's and I will go into my master's. I'm even thinking about maybe getting a doctorate. Who knows? I might be 82 when that happens, but that's okay.
It doesn't matter.
I'll die a doctor, honey.
Okay.
One of my favorite people in the rooms actually didn't get sober until she was 55, and she got her bachelor's at 60s. She got her master's at 65, and then she got a PhD in her 70s. And she's keep going. Just keep going. Whatever it is, finish what you start and keep going.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
I love it. To end this episode, I'm devastated that we have to end it, but we do. I want us to all look at the camera and just say to our community that's out there, we see you, we hear you, and we're with you. And you are not alone.
You're not alone.
Thanks. We'll see you next week on No Matter What Club.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.